Hey guys, it's been quite a while since the last video. I know there were quite some other priorities in terms of work. That's why we had to take a short break away from the YouTube scene. Anyway, now just trying out a little bit of a new YouTube video format because I received quite some feedback that the previous form, people having a little bit of difficulty trying to look at the data lah. But if you feel that the new form, which is what we are seeing right now, is better for you, do let me know. If not, if you prefer the older one, feel free to let me know as well, and then we can always revert, no problem about that. Today's topic, we'll be talking about federal interest rates. Why? Because this has been the topic for a very long time already. We have been waiting, anxiously waiting, especially as homeowners. All these are eating directly into our gains and of course our ongoing causes as homeowners. At this current interest rate, about 3 point something, 4 point something percent, we are easily paying over half of our installment in terms of interest rate. So let's take a look at this article just today, if I'm not wrong, by Reuters. The Federal Reserve has already mentioned, or rather is expected to cut interest rates by 25 basis points on 18th of September and also twice more in 2004, which thankfully we definitely cannot wait for it to come, right? With inflation approaching the 2% target and also some signs of an economic slowdown, this range has been around since July 2023. That means we've been at this peak for one full year, or rather more than one full year, which is crazy scary. If you add in the spread, that means the US guys are probably facing rates of around 6% and above. For us, thankfully, we are just about 4 point something percent for the floating rates. For those people who have been locked in the fix at 3 point something and lower, congratulations to you. You managed to avoid the disaster for a very long period of time. Then let's take a look at how this federal interest expected drop, which is about 25 basis points times 3, which will be 75 basis points, right? How will this be expected to impact the market on a more macro basis? Let's take a look at this diagram from MortgageWise. Thanks to their courtesy for providing us this very useful chart, which I always use. Especially as a homeowner, we definitely want to make more informed choices, and all this data, of course, is what I like. I like to look at all this data and stay as a very informed consumer, right? Over here, interest rate, we have seen that since 2009, it has been on almost like a historical low, almost lah. Okay, I can't remember before that how long it has been, how low it has been for a longer period of time. But for this whole 7-year period, as you can see, this green arrow indicated by all this indicated green arrow doesn't mean that the transaction volume over here dropped. For those of you who are curious, for the sake of people who are trying to look at the data, this green arrow basically just means lower interest rate period. Okay, and as for the red one, of course, it shows there is a higher interest rate period. As you can see over here, this was a so-called false start. It went a little bit, not so much, but between 2017 to 2018 previously, this was the period for those of you who were in the market or already looking at the market. This was the en bloc fever. SSD was reduced, which sparked off quite a bit of market frenzy and shifted the market to almost new heights at that point of time, which is quite nice to see. For once, ever since 2013, cooling measures keep coming along, and then we were seeing crazy, stagnant, worrying property prices. But now we are seeing totally different things. And then between 2019 to 2020, we were seeing interest rate sharp drop, followed by the COVID period. Of course, this was previously thanks to COVID, right? During this period of time, house prices went up. It went up like what we see. 2022, it was the previous nightmare. I think this when a lot of people who didn't manage to lock. I remember that time period. That period of time, DBS was offering 1.5% for 5 years. I reminded quite a few clients to go either do refinance or go and take out the new loan for those that were buying properties. For those that already had existing property, I reminded quite a few. Some, of course, didn't. They just completely continue with their daily lives, forgot about it, and then after that it's turned back to regret. But for those who managed to log in for 5 years, they were obviously very thankful for that. And then we somehow managed to survive that 1 year over here. Thankfully, we are not the one in black, which is the US Fed funds. We are actually the one at SORA. But if you add in the spread, which is around usually between 0.4 to 0.7, 0.8, that will easily lead us into a 4% plus zone, which is still in danger territory, right? And then if we take a look at the transaction volume and also average PSF KY basis for private, 2017 to 2018, we saw transaction volume dropping because of higher interest rate, which totally makes sense because when it comes to higher interest rate, people are not so optimistic around market. They tend to be a little bit more cautious. And when interest rates started to drop halfway through 2019, that is where you see transaction volume started picking up. Even during the COVID period where we had a few lost months, people were panicking, everyone were totally uncertain how the market was going to be. And after that, the immediate year, it became like a revenge buying year, totally almost double the volume. Okay, COV doesn't mean COV, it's not a HDB COV, it means COVID. Later we'll talk about the PSF over here for those of you who are wondering. And then for the remaining 3 years, previously from 2022 to 2024, we are gradually seeing transaction volume dropping, which is totally, I think, expected because interest rate higher, people feel the pain, people feel the pinch, and then they are more hesitant in their decision. But that, interestingly, did not stop prices from coming down until this year slightly, which is probably a little bit obvious because of the sharp decrease in volume. Actually, it's not really that sharp because if you think about it, we haven't even finished the full year. This chart up to the month of August, that's why we have maybe about 1/3 of the way to go. If you extrapolate, that means it's about 21 over here. It's a little bit too early to tell, but what we are seeing over here is that over the past few years, PSF went up to here, over here, and then drop a little bit and then continue climbing up to this part before it starts to drop in the COVID year, which is kind of expected, and then it started climbing rapidly again until about 1.8 plus thousand PSF. Now probably I think expected about high 1,008, 1,009 towards the end of the year. It's still a little bit too early to tell, but these numbers are just an estimate at this point of time. So what we are seeing over here and what we can decipher over here is that generally when interest rates are higher, people tend to be more apprehensive, they tend to be more careful. But when interest rates starts to drop, like what we see over here, back during this period of time, what will happen to the prices? Will it continue this red color over here in this column? Obviously means that the PSF is increased, whereas the green one, which for market buyers, they love green because there is a perfect opportunity for them to buy mud. But for homeowners, of course they don't want to see green lah. Me myself included, I totally don't know. Definitely do not want to see green color when it comes to holding my assets. But it's definitely part of the market, right? As long as you have the right holding power, I don't see why we need to panic about this. Anyway, if we put it into the chart, if we look at this, so far the few dips that we are seeing over the past, I would say almost about 14 to 15 years over here. If we look at this chart again, the dip back in 2014 to 2015 only lasted about 1 year. Then it continued another climb again. Another 1 year, continue and climb again. Are we going to be seeing the next thing again? So what are we seeing here? Are those people sitting on the fence, not knowing what to do? They are hoping that property prices will come down. So far, from what we are seeing over here on a more macro basis, it doesn't seem to be coming down, unfortunately, for those people who are sitting on the fence. Thankfully, for homeowners, we are happy that it is likely going to climb because of the higher interest rate. Yes, we do know that people are a little bit more concerned about economic slowdown, but it seems that the US side, they are more focused on trying to achieve a soft landing kind of effect rather than a hard crash like last time. And if we look at how stable our property market is, how much cooling measure has been enforced to make sure that there is minimal speculation, definitely there are still speculation, but how much speculation as compared to the decades, 20, 30 years ago, that sort of speculation, I think that is totally a different kind of thing. If we look at how the chart has been, all these are transaction volume. Which year will be a good year for people to enter? I think it's not so clear that we are seeing winners at this year, or is it this year? Because the funny thing is that do we see winners and losers for every single year? I think so, right? How do we actually put our monies in this market and then appreciate accordingly? I think the important thing is to really sit down and find out every single year there are winners and losers, and what are the patterns of the winners. How is it that every single year there are winners regardless of how high the interest is going to be, how low is the interest is going to be, and what are the macro factors. As long as Singapore stays stable as a country, are we eventually going to see gains? I think that's the most important part. How much you buy, how much you exit, at the end of the day is all that matters. In between, you just need to make sure that you don't panic, make the right decision, and then when the time comes, just make sure you exit at the right time. So that will be all we have for today. And then if you have any questions, feel free to DM. I'll be there to help. See you guys. Thank you. Bye-bye.